So recent reports from Cal Toomey claim that Hawthorn are near on obsessed with getting Harley Reid over to the Hawks. Let's talk about it. So as we know, Harley Reid is out of contract at the end of next season, but rumours have it that West Coast are willing to pay him $20 million over 10 years. Now, is Harley worth that much? Absolutely not, at least not right now. But in the future, if he could potentially become a top 10 to 15 player, then yes, absolutely. And especially in the situation West Coast are in, they sort of have to get that marquee star just to sort of make the club a bit more attractive to free agents, sort of the way that Melbourne did recently with Cozzy Pickett. I have briefly spoken about this in my previous videos, but yeah, Hawthorn have the assets to acquire Harley Reid in a trade, because he's going to have to be traded over, not signed as a free agent. So Hawthorn have Carlton's first round pick and second round pick in this year's draft, which are both most likely to go high, and that first round pick could potentially be in the top 10. I'm assuming West Coast would happily accept that offer, with maybe an addition of a player or two, but the thing is with the Hawks, they have so many players in their depth lineup, like the Box Hill side and just the end of the best 25 to 30 players. They have so many good young players that are going to be guns in the league, and I'm assuming at least one of them is going to go over to West Coast at the end of this season, if the trade falls through. So as of right now, Hawthorn are mainly targeting Harley Reid and Zach Butters to come over at the end of the 2025 season. Now, which player would you rather? Most people, I think, would say Zach Butters, 24 years old, already a top 5 to 10 player in the league right now. And yeah, he's exactly what Hawthorn are missing in the midfield. Speed and more of a around 30 disposals per game player, which Hawthorn are missing both of those. So a 2-for-1 with Butters would be perfect. But on the other hand, Reid fits the timeline slightly better. Butters still fits it nicely at 24 years old. But if Reid fits this timeline to go into maybe the next generation of Hawks, and I'm talking 5 years or so, when the older players like Sicily and Impey, Amon, all those players who are about 29, 30 years old once they're gone. So Harley would fit both timelines. I think the Hawks could potentially sign Harley. I don't think he's going to get $2 million a season though. I think between 1.4 and 1.8, simply for the fact that Hawthorn have money to spend. They're not really paying anyone big money right now. I think their three highest paid players are Barris, Battle and Sicily, all on about between 800 and 900 grand. So we don't have $1 million player at the moment, the Hawks. And yes, that is a massive overpay, but like I said, we're not paying anyone right now, and Hawthorn are one piece away, most likely a gun midfielder, but we're one piece away from completing this team and turning it into a premiership side. And Harley Reid in the guts with that explosive speed. Yes, he's a forward mid, but that explosiveness out of the midfield is exactly what Hawthorn needs. So yeah, it'd be worth the overpay. Plus, Harley has the character, the hype, and the exciting game style, which is just going to put fans in the seats. So, yeah, an overpay could definitely pay dividends later down the line, especially if he turns into a Brownlow medal contender. Now, along with this Harley trade, we have to talk about Hawthorn's young guys that are either going to be included in this Harley trade or are going to sign with other teams, simply for the fact that they're not going to get the opportunity at the Hawks. And this is massive, because it's probably going to be close to half a dozen players that aren't going to be on the list next season that you probably expect would be. But just looking at these selection of players, yes, I expect maybe half of them to stay, but don't forget, other teams could offer an extra 100, 150 grand per season to these guys, and they could walk for extra money, so there's no guarantee we'll keep everyone. I think Ramsden is a definite keep, Butler and Huswaite and Bailey McDonald, at least for another season. CJ as well, yes. And that little picture collage didn't even count players like Brodie Ryan, Jasper Scaife, Matt Hill. Luke Bruce could potentially retire, we don't know until it happens really. Blank, Anderson, Will McCabe, there's a bunch more that could potentially leave for either more money or in a trade or however it goes. But yeah, we could be down at least 5 to 6, maybe even more of our young guns or sort of our depth pieces going into next season. So this is out of contract for 2026, so the end of next season. The reason I show this one first is because look how many of our important players have to be re-signed. We got about 10 to 12 regular players, or at least players in our best 25 that are most likely going to get paid and yeah, re-signed. So yeah, we're going to have to cut a few extra players at the end of this off-season, potentially a Frost or a Bruce if they retire. And yeah, and the gone section, Huswaite, Blank, Anderson, I think simply because we're not going to be able to afford them. We're going to have to give like Newcomb, Moore, Watson, Weddle, probably close to $1 million, if not more, depending on how they're playing over the next 2 seasons. But yeah, the only player out of the 2026 class I think is a 50-50. They're not definitely gone or definitely staying is Reeves, simply for the fact that he's our only backup ruckman, really. Now, at the end of this season, Meek is definitely going to stay. Gunston earned another year, definitely. Deer's a definite. Butler, I like him. He's a good depth piece, and if we're going to lose players like Hustwaite and maybe a Warple, yeah, I think he's definitely going to get signed again. Now, the gone, I think Bruce might retire. Frost, he's definitely not getting a spot in this team anytime soon. Scaife, he's probably not good enough considering he hasn't got an opportunity yet. And then the 50-50, Warple, we don't know until it happens, really, until he re-signs. Mitchell and Sarong, look, we don't know. They're probably not going to get a regular spot for the next few seasons, so they might seek opportunity elsewhere. I don't think people realise the opportunity that young players have elsewhere right now. Obviously, we know Richmond, North Melbourne and West Coast, they're the main rebuilders right now. They have been for a few years. And then in the middle of the pack, we have Essendon and St Kilda, who simply just, they're not bad enough to be top 4 and get a high pick, but they're not good enough to make the 8. So they're still rebuilding. They both have decent players, especially St Kilda. I think St Kilda are coming along nicely. Then we've got a Melbourne and a Carlton, who are most likely going to blow it up at the end of this season. I think Melbourne have a decent young core. Yes, they got Pickett, which is going to be good, because I reckon he can be a top 10 player in the league at his prime. He hasn't even hit his prime yet. He kicked 5 goals on the weekend, so yeah. And then, yeah, Carlton is just Carlton. They suck. They're going to trade out their assets for as much value as possible. And then Port Adelaide, we don't know with the power. If they lose Butters, maybe they do have just a retooling year. Not a rebuild, but a retooling year. They get 2 or 3 young guys, they get a couple draft picks, and then develop players another off-season, another full season, and go from there. But yeah, we simply don't know until it happens. But that's 8 teams that I think any one of our young guys could move to and have unlimited opportunity and more time to develop in the ones rather than playing for Box Hill. But I really want to know what you guys think. Do you think we're going to keep most of our players? We're going to lose half a dozen of our young guys that are sort of playing mostly at Box Hill? Look, I have no idea. We're not going to know until it happens. So comment down below. Let me know. I'm very curious to hear other people's thoughts on this.